Now we've got our animation spaced out in the timeline, and things are looking okay. Our only real problem is now we have to worry about things disappearing too soon. If I just hit my Enter key, or my Return key on the Mac, and we watch our animation, we can see that each one of our items is disappearing way too soon. Now let me close up our button layer folder here, and we'll take a look at our static layers here at the bottom. We've got our photo montage, our content panel, and our background, and we can see when they disappear. We found out previously all we need to do is extend those frame spans in order to keep the item on the screen longer. We have a number of ways of doing that. If you like to drag, don't forget to add the keyboard shortcut for dragging that square at the end. On the Mac, you're going to hold the Command key, and on the PC, you're going to hold the Control key. So I'm just going to hold the Command key here on the Mac, grab that last frame, we'll stretch it out, and now my background is going to be on the screen just as long as the camera icon is. We can also accomplish this with our F5 keyboard shortcut. I can even do it for multiple layers at once. I'll do the photo montage and the content panel. I'll just click, and I can shift click on the end. That gets me both layers selected. I'll press F5, and that will extend both frame spans all the way out to my selection point. Now let's take a look at what that's going to do when we have a motion tween. I'm going to open my button folder back up, and let's take a look at just the home button. If I grab the end of my motion tween, I'm just going to extend the tween. And that's just going to make the motion longer. That's not what I want. The same thing's going to happen with the F5 button. What we really need on this side of the timeline is another frame span for my home button where it doesn't move. Now I'll show you how to create that. First, we're going to need a keyframe. Remember, all of our changes go in keyframes. So I'm going to go to the frame right after the end of my home button, and I'm going to press the F7 key. Now if you remember, F6 creates a keyframe. And if we do that, that's just going to extend my frame span for my motion tween. F7 creates a keyframe, but it's a blank one. So there we can see that empty dot next to the end of my motion tween. Now we need to fill that empty keyframe up. And what we want is the last frame of our motion tween animation. If I move my playhead back to the end of that motion tween there, I can see my home button, and I can also select it. Now at this point, we've already seen if you hit delete, you'll actually remove the home button from the tween. It's kind of interesting because it'll leave the tween there, but that's not what we want. But we can see that we have access to that graphic. If I use the copy command right now, or Control or Command C if you'd like, what I'm doing is I'm copying the graphic out of the end of that frame. Now let's move our selection over to the new empty keyframe that we made, and I want to paste, but I'm not just going to use any old paste. You'll notice up in the Edit menu, we have Paste in Center and Paste in Place. Paste in Center will place that item in the center of your view window. That's not what we want. We want to put it right back where it was. So I'm going to use Paste in Place. If you like keyboard shortcuts for that, notice that this one's a little bit different. It's Shift Command V on the Mac or Shift Control V on the PC. But when I choose Paste in Place, it's going to put that home button right back where we picked it up from, the end of the animation. Now I basically have a brand new frame span. If I click away from it, you can see that it's gray, indicating that it's not moving. And if I just go down here to the end, I can now use my F5 key to extend that frame span and keep that home button on the screen. Let's do that for our other button labels as well. I'll go up to the portfolio button layer. I'm going to click in the frame past the end of the motion tween and press F7, creating a blank keyframe. I'll back up one frame, and I'll just use Command C or Control C on the PC to copy that last graphic, go back to my blank keyframe, and I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command Shift V or Control Shift V on the PC to paste that in, and I'll go out to the end of my timeline and press F5 to extend that frame span. I'll do the next one with the menus just so we can make sure we get this right. F7 for a blank keyframe, back up one frame, and I'm just going to choose Copy. Go back to my blank keyframe and paste in place, and then extend the timeline with F5. And we've got one more layer. I need a blank keyframe, F7. I'll use copy once again. Go back to my blank keyframe. Paste in place. And even though it's one frame, I'll just extend it by selecting the end and pressing F5. Now, as you can see, that sets my whole timeline up. If we just preview our animation, we don't have any items disappearing from the stage, and our movie ends. Now, it's a pretty good habit to set those static frames up at the end of a motion tween because it allows you to extend the timeline anytime you want to. Notice I don't have one on the camera icon, and if I were to extend that timeline, I'd be extending the motion tween. So just to keep things neat, I'm going to set that layer up as well. I'll go out to the end of it and press F7. I'll back up one frame, choose copy, and go back to my frame and paste in place. Command-Shift-V or Control-Shift-V. Now that sets me up to easily extend my animation whenever I want. Let me collapse that button folder layer down. I'll move my timeline over a little bit. And I'm just going to select all my frames out at frame 100. I'm going to click on the top and drag down so I have all the layers selected. And I can just press F5 because I've got all static frame spans at the end. And it's just going to extend all of them, including the ones inside the button layer. Now we can press Enter or Return and preview our animation. It's looking pretty good.